Septimia Zenobia 274–267 was a 3rd century queen of the Palmyrene Empire in Syria. She married the ruler of the city, Odaenathus. Her husband became king in 260, elevating Palmyra to supreme power in the Near East by defeating the Sasanian Empire of Persia and stabilizing the Roman East. During the early centuries AD, Palmyra was a city subordinate to Rome and part of the province of Syria Phoenix. In 260 the Roman Emperor Valerian marched against the Sassanid Persian monarch Shapur I, who had invaded the empire's eastern regions. Valerian was defeated and captured near Edessa. Odaenathus, formerly loyal to Rome and its emperor Gallienus, Valerian's son, was declared king of Palmyra. Launching successful campaigns against Persia, he was crowned King of Kings of the East in 263. Odaenathus' late 20s or early 30s, Odaenathus and his eldest son were assassinated while returning from a campaign. 2 or 3 years after Odaenathus' death, so exactly when Zenobia assumed the title, Queen of Palmyra. Odaenathus was assassinated by a cousin named Maeonius. Odaenathus' son from his first wife was named Herodes and was crowned co-ruler by his father. Zenobia conspired with Maeonius for a time because she did not accept her stepson as his father's heir. Ahead of her own children, he was killed near Heraclea Pontica in Bithynia. Zenobia may have been in Palmyra, but Zenobia did not fight for supremacy. Throne was transferred to Odaenathus and Zenobia's son, the 10-year-old Vaballathus. Although she never claimed to rule in her own right and acted as a regent for her son, Zenobia held the reins of power in the kingdom. And Vaballathus was kept in his mother's shadow, never exercising real power. The Palmyrene monarchy was new. Allegiance was based on loyalty to Odaenathus, making the transfer of power to a successor more difficult than it would have been in an established monarchy. Odaenathus tried to ensure the dynasty's future by crowning his eldest son co-king, but both were assassinated. Zenobia, left to secure the Palmyrene succession and retain the loyalty of its subjects, emphasized the continuity between her late husband and his successor, her son. Vaballathus, with Zenobia orchestrating the process, assumed his father's royal titles immediately, and his earliest known inscription records him as King of Kings. Odaenathus controlled a large area of the Roman East, and held the highest political and military authority in the region, superseding that of the Roman provincial governors. His self-created status was formalized by Emperor Gallienus, who had little choice but to acquiesce. Odaenathus's power relative to that of the emperor and the central authority was unprecedented and elastic, but relations remained smooth until his death. His assassination meant that the Palmyrene ruler's authority and position had to be clarified, which led to a conflict over their interpretation. The Roman court viewed Odaenathus as an appointed Roman official who derived his power from the emperor, but the Palmyrene court saw his position as hereditary. This conflict was the first step on the road to war between Rome and Palmyra. Odaenathus' Roman titles, such as Dux Romanorum, Corrector Totius Orientis and Imperator Totius Orientis, differed from his royal Eastern ones because the Roman ranks were not hereditary. Vaballathus had a legitimate claim to his royal titles, but had no right to the Roman ones, especially Corrector, denoting a senior military and provincial commander in the Roman system, which Zenobia used for her son in his earliest known inscriptions with King of Kings. Although the Roman emperors accepted the royal succession, the assumption of Roman military rank antagonized the empire. Emperor Gallienus may have decided to intervene in an attempt to regain central authority. According to the Historia Augusta, Praetorian prefect Aurelius Heraclianus was dispatched to assert imperial authority over the east and was repelled by the Palmyrene army. The account is doubtful, however, since Heraclianus participated in Gallienus' assassination in 268. Odaenathus was assassinated shortly before the emperor, and Heraclianus would have been unable to be sent to the east, fight the Palmyra and return to the west in time to become involved in the conspiracy against the emperor. Corresponding inability to protect the provinces, which probably convinced Zenobia that the only way to maintain stability in the east was to control the region directly. Zenobia's actions to her desire to protect Palmyra's economic interests, which were threatened by Rome's failure to protect the provinces. Also, according to Schwartz, the economic interests conflicted. Bostra and Egypt received trade which would have otherwise passed through Palmyra. The Tanakids near Bostra and the merchants of Alexandria probably attempted to rid themselves of Palmyrene domination, triggering a military response from Zenobia. In the spring of 270, while Claudius was fighting the Goths in the mountains of Thrace, Zenobia sent her general Septimius Zabdas to Bosra, capital of the province of Arabia Petraea. The queen's timing seems intentional. In Arabia, the Roman governor, Dux Trasus, commanding the Legio III Cyrenaica, confronted the Palmyrenes and was routed and killed. Zabdas sacked the city, and destroyed the temple of Zeus Hammon, the legion's revered shrine. The city of el-Jimal may have also been destroyed by the Palmyra in connection with their efforts to subjugate the Tanakids. After his victory, Zabdas marched south along the Jordan Valley and apparently met little opposition. There is evidence that Petra was attacked by a small contingent which penetrated the region. Syrian subjugation required less effort because Zenobia had substantial support there, particularly in Antioch, Syria's traditional capital. The invasion of Arabia coincided with the cessation of coin production in Claudius' name by the Antiochian mint, indicating that Zenobia had begun tightening her grip on Syria. By November 270, the mint began issuing coinage in Vaballathus' name. Until now, Zenobia could say that she was acting as a representative of the emperor, who was securing the eastern lands of the empire, while the Roman monarch was preoccupied with struggles in Europe. The invasion of Egypt is sometimes explained by Zenobia's desire to secure an alternative trade route to the Euphrates, which was cut because of the war with Persia. The occupation of Egypt was an opportunistic move by Zenobia, who was encouraged by the news of Claudius' death in August. Zenobia was declared Queen of Egypt after Palmyrene invasion of Egypt. Rome was entangled in a succession crisis between Claudius' brother Quintillus and the general Aurelian. Zenobia initially avoided provoking Rome by claiming for herself and her son the titles, inherited from Odaenathus, of subject of Rome and protector of its eastern frontier. After expanding her territory, she seems to have tried to be recognized as an imperial partner in the eastern half of the empire and presented her son as subordinate to the emperor. In late 270, Zenobia minted coinage bearing the portraits of Aurelian, the new emperor, and Vaballathus. Aurelian was titled Emperor and Vaballathus, King. A late 271 Egyptian grain receipt equated Aurelian and Vaballathus, jointly calling him Augusti. Finally, Palmyra officially broke with Rome. The Alexandrian and Antiochian mints removed Aurelian's portrait from the coins in April 272, issuing new tetradrachms in the names of Vaballathus and Zenobia. The assumption of imperial titles by Zenobia signaled a usurpation, independence from, and open rebellion against, Aurelian. The timeline of events and why Zenobia declared herself empress is vague. In the second half of 271, Aurelian marched to the east, but was delayed by the Goths in the Balkans. This may have alarmed the queen, driving her to claim the imperial title. The usurpation, which began in late March or early April 272, ended by August. Aurelian spent the winter of 271 to 272 in Byzantium, and probably crossed the Bosporus to Asia Minor in April 272. Galatia fell easily. The Palmyrene garrisons were apparently withdrawn, and the provincial capital of Ancyra was regained without a struggle. All the cities in Asia Minor opened the doors to the Roman emperor, with only Chiana putting up some resistance before surrendering. This cleared the path for Aurelian to invade Syria, the Palmyrene heartland. A simultaneous expedition reached Egypt in May 272. By early June, Alexandria was captured by the Romans, followed by the rest of Egypt by the third week of June. Zenobia seems to have withdrawn most of her armies from Egypt to focus on Syria, which, if lost, would have meant the end of Palmyra. In May 272, Aurelian headed toward Antioch. About 40 kilometers, 25 miles, north of the city, he defeated the Palmyrene army, led by Zabdas, at the Battle of Imme. As a result, Zenobia, who waited in Antioch during the battle, retreated with her army to Emesa. To conceal the disaster and make her flight safer, she spread reports that Aurelian was captured. Zabdas found a man who resembled the Roman emperor and paraded him through Antioch. The following day, Aurelian entered the city before marching south. After defeating a Palmyrene garrison south of Antioch, Aurelian continued his march to meet Zenobia in the Battle of Emesa. The 70,000-strong Palmyrene army, assembled on the plain of Emesa, nearly routed the Romans. In an initial thrill of victory, they hastened their advance, breaking their lines and enabling the Roman infantry to attack their flank. The defeated Zenobia headed to her capital on the advice of her war council, leaving her treasury behind. In Palmyra, the queen prepared for a siege. Aurelian blockaded food supply routes, and there were probably unsuccessful negotiations. As the situation worsened, the queen left the city for Persia, intending on seeking help from Palmyra's former enemy. She rode a female camel, the fastest of its breed and faster than any horse. Aurelian, learning about Zenobia's departure, sent a contingent which captured the queen before she could cross the Euphrates to Persia. Palmyra capitulated soon after news of Zenobia's captivity reached the city in August 272. Aurelian sent the queen and her son to Emesa for trial, followed by most of Palmyra's court elite. Although Aurelian had most of his prisoners executed, he spared the queen and her son to parade her in his planned triumph. Zenobia's fate after Emesa is uncertain since ancient historians left conflicting accounts. Zosimus wrote that she died before crossing the Bosporus on her way to Rome. According to this account, the queen became ill or starved herself to death.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe my channel for more videos.